Hi, I'm Guy Langlois. I live on Vancouver Island. I'm an artist. Here's the textured surface that I created using gel medium. So I use a 300-pound paper. It's good to use a thicker paper for this process. Here's the gel medium that I use. It's an ultra matte gel. And just use tissue paper. What I do is I paint the surface with a synthetic brush and use a gel medium to put a thick layer of gel medium on the paper, on the watercolor paper. Then I I crumple the tissue paper into a thick ball, and then I unwrap it and lay it into the paper surface, and that creates these ridges. Then I paint another thin coat over the tissue paper, and then let it dry thoroughly before I start working on it. It has to be completely dry. Some brushes that I use in my palette. I recommend having some larger brushes on hand that will hold a lot of paint. These are reference photos taken on Vancouver Island. So I'm just using cerulean blue by Winsor Newton to paint in the areas of the sky. This will give you my lighter tones in the sky. I'll add some Winsor Newton intense blue, and the combination gives you a nice variation of color. Now I'm applying water to the surface. It's a wet on wet type process. So you see that the easel is tilted quite steeply, so to allow the paint to run. You see that I'm mixing the paint right on the paper. This allows it just to move and mix, basically allowing the paint to go wherever it wants to. And use a mist to make the paint run, fine mist. You don't want to use anything that has big droplets, something that has a real fine mist. I have some rags handy because this gets messy and the water starts running down the page and onto the floor, so put some rags down. Here I'm putting more neutral tint down. What I'm doing is just increasing the tonal value of the two trees that I'm painting that are in the foreground. So I'm adding various colors here, some gold and browns. And using some more water just to get the paint moving. And now I take the board and I'll turn it in different directions to make the paint move in all directions. So I use this abstract approach to creating a realistic image. I call it abstract realism. Yes, that is a bit of an oxymoron and certainly a stretch of the imagination. My paintings may look realistic, but if you look close, I have created an illusion. My process of creating art involves using textures and letting the watercolor paint move randomly over the surface. The different colors mix and meander, creating new shapes and colors. I'm also a musician. I like performing jazz music. In a way, my art is very similar to performing jazz. I'm a bass player, and as a bass player, I lay the foundation for the music and for the performers, the other musicians to play along with. Jazz musicians improvise on the melody. What the listener hears may at times sound a bit chaotic, but as a bass player, and what I do is provide a foundation for the soloist, and that creates the context for the music to sound good and feels good to our souls. Creating art is similar to performing jazz in that I am using paint to improvise instead of my bass. I'm reacting in the same way as I would be if I was playing music. In this case, the medium watercolor is my foundation. My paintbrushes are my instrument. And my mind provides the vision of what I want to paint. So here's that intense blue that I've added to the sky, and see that the surface is dry now and looks a little bit lighter, and colors have blended together, creating all kinds of different new colors. And see how the darker colors have settled in around the ridges, creating these kind of almost like branches and roots for the tree. Creates a very interesting, realistic looking texture. So I've added some more color to the background using greens, various colors of green, sap green and spring green. Looks good in contrast with the blue of the sky. So now that I have created these shapes, the random shapes and color of the painting, I will try to make sense of what I am seeing. My eyes see the objects, but my brain translates these into images and fills in the gaps. I try to make sense of all this information. What I see is I see trees, I see rocks, sometimes I see faces, animals, and when I'm painting deep space objects like nebula or the northern lights, I see the cosmos, I see the stars. So what I'm doing now is I'm just adding some more neutral tint. I'm defining the shadows of the painting. So there's shadows in the cracks in the bark of the tree, there's shadows under the roots or in the rocks on the ground. So I use my reference photos more as just as a guide for what I'm trying to create here. I'm looking at the colors more, the light, and trying to create that on the paper. I'm not really trying to create an exact photographic image of a tree. I'm just trying to give you the essence of the tree. What's interesting about this kind of art is that the viewer looking at my painting will see different things that catch their eye, and their brains will actually fill in the gaps. And, oh, that's a tree. They'll recognize a tree or an animal. It may be intentionally that I put the object in the painting, or they may see things that were unintentional. So always use mist to keep the paint running. This creates more soft lines at this stage. Just want everything to blend together. Use some tissue, facial tissue, a soft paper tissue to lift some of the paint off the surface. What's interesting about the gel medium is that it creates a surface that you can actually lift most of the paint right off if you're not careful. Here I'm just using the tissue to just blend the paint in. So what I'm saying is you can lift the paint right off. I could probably take a sprayer and wash the paint right off this thing and start all over again if I wanted to. So it's very forgiving in that sense. So if there's some spots that I want to lighten up, and like on the bottom of the page where the roots are, is tending to get a little dark, I'll use the paper tissue to lift some of the color off the page, and then I can add some lighter colors in that area. Allows the transparency of the watercolor come through. Otherwise, you end up with really dull looking colors. I use my rigger brushes to create some smaller branches. So what I like about riggers is they're just wonderful for creating tree branches, because you can get this really erratic, random shapes of. See, I do this quite quickly, and I don't give a lot of thought to it. I'm looking more for how would the roots move. Where are they going? They're going into the ground. They're going down. Branches will go up, down, and all over the place, of course, but so I'll put some branches in here just randomly, just like what nature is. If you want to create a realistic scene of nature, don't paint straight lines, create random chaos. I think that's why this approach to creating natural landscapes is very realistic. So again, spraying the surface and allowing the paint to run. It's really quite beautiful to watch. So now that the paper surface is dry to the touch, you can see the texture of the cedar tree coming through and the colors of it. Still a little bit light. Watercolors, you're always working from lighter colors to darker colors. Now that the main objects of the painting have been identified, I will use paint and pastels to just increase the detail of those objects. So I use a soft pastel to create highlights and shadows in the painting. Here's the finished painting. See how the pastels just add this touch of light where the leaves are, and the dark pastels are used to create shadows under the roots and in the bark. It just runs over the ridges of the texture. It's really quite stunning looking at it close up. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my video. Good day.